I wanted to get on real quick to talk about. I was tagged on a couple of Instagram posts and Facebook posts in regards to some dude. He wanted to, you know, repeat what the Wall Street bets, uh, now infamously, uh, did, and I just want to stress that, you know, he was basically saying, I forgot the guy's name. He was basically saying he wanted to do exactly like what Wall Street bets did: get together, create our own investment group, a public investment group, excuse me, and pump up stocks and then dump them the same way Wall Street bets is doing. That's not, listen, I'm all for going against the system and, you know, playing Robin Hood, but you don't do that with your face. I don't see any one of these Wall Street bets guys. I don't see their face on the camera. I don't know who these guys are. The feds already have all these pictures and names to attach for whoever they wanted to arrest during the Capitol riots. My point is that a lot of these Wall Street bets guys, not that they live in obscurity or that they're anonymous, because the feds could find out who they are. They're probably going to be doing massive changes. The thing with this is once more people get involved in investing or being a part of anything, it's a bubble. And what I suggest everyone do is learn about the market crash of 1929. In that market crash of 1929, it was a setup of it was a bunch of setups in the market. Some people are fundamental traders, some people are technical traders, some people are both. I'm personally getting rid of my debt, getting my balance in order before I ever step foot in the stock market again. There's a lot of rules to trading that you should abide by. Learning about the market crash of 1929 and that time period is fundamental, in my opinion, of learning how to trade in general because there were no rules. And the internet brought that, made that happen again. There's no rules. So one of the things that happened back then, and one thing that they did use in that time period was margin. So now we have margin. You have to set up a margin account in order to short a stock. Nowadays, you need $2,000 at least to open a margin account and be able to short a stock um, or even buy options. So, and even when you do that, you're basically shorting a stock is basically taking the stock on a loan. So you're buying a stock at a lower price on a loan. So if it goes up, you owe money. If the next day passes by and you didn't get the position you wanted, you owe more money because you're paying interest. Now, they even have different rules for different stocks. Every stock you're not allowed to trade with the same amount of money, the same amount of interest. Some stocks are not even shortable, for lack of a better term. So compare that to 100 years ago, almost 100 years ago, where margin, the same exact account that you're allowed to have now that you need $2,000 for, was totally different. Back then, if you had $100 in your account, in a margin account, they would allow you to trade $1,000 worth of stock. So you were getting 10 times the amount that you put into the market. And the reason why it was even worse back then and the pump and dump scheme was even crazier, that was during a time period of what they call permanent prosperity. And that was when things like layaway were invented because the consumerism was invented. So there was a lot of money that they wanted to throw back into the market, into the economy. And they were not being put in by the big time institutions who Wall Street bets was going up against. So back then you had $100 and were able to trade $1,000 worth of stock with that $100. So what they did back then was they would actually pay reporters to promote a company in the newspaper. They would pay them with checks. The journalists or the reporters would publish it. So that was sort of a payola scheme. And then they would generate the market's interest, the people's interest, the retail investors' interest, that you and me, you and I, regular people, to buy these stocks. Let's say it's a Logitech, like this camera is. You buy, $10,000 worth of Logitech. All you needed was $1,000, and you see the stock rising because there's more interest in it. Supply and demand is the game. So once everybody's buying into it, who are you selling to? Who's selling it to you? I mean, you're buying it, but who are you buying it from? You're buying it from the institutions who pumped it up through these reporters and these journalists. So now this stock hits 200, it hits 300, it hits 400. These guys already sold their stock. So when you look to sell, because you're at 300, 350, 400, who's left to sell the stock to continue to pump the stock up? Real quick answer. Nobody. So there's nobody else that's going to buy the stock, meaning there's no demand, no real demand. On top of that, a lot of these institutions, what they were called institutions, the same check that they paid these journalists with ended up bouncing. So these guys were like paper gangsters to the core. And people lost their money. And that's how a big part of the market crash happened. Along with that, there wasn't, how did the regular person, how are they able to learn about these stocks? How did the word get around like that? It's the same way it's happening now. These are called, like the most famous ones, a tulip bubble crash. You can look these things up. I just tell people to be very careful. It's a serious thing. If you take it serious, if you take anything seriously, you want to be a professional, you got to do your homework. There's an 80-20 rule for a reason. 80% of us are going to follow. 20% of us are enlightened or attempting to be enlightened. Just be careful out there, man. Don't listen to your mailman and your coworker because they figured everything out. I don't got it all figured out. I just told you I'm getting rid of my debt. That's what I'm working on. Get my balance sheet correct, and then I'll be able to trade with that. That's all, man. God bless. See y'all later. Pump fake.